to another episode of Power Move Makers. This series was created with a simple goal in mind: to bring to the table high-level executives, successful entrepreneurs, and just all-around inspiring human beings. Not only to highlight their successes, but more important, to focus on the road they traveled to get there. Now, this week's guest, I'm sure everybody in the world knows her brand. You might not know her name, but we're going to introduce you to her. Before I even say her name, she is part of that coveted 30 under 30 Forbes list. She has done so much in the industry, created this huge media conglomerate on Instagram that we all know and love, the Shade Room, Miss Angie Nwandu. How you doing,
Thank
Angie?
you for that dope introduction.
Huh?
I said, thank you for that dope introduction. Thank you.
No, you deserve it. You deserve it. You're a part of all of our lives.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm happy to be here. So thanks for having me.
Nah, thanks for granting us the time. I think it's so much that our audience can learn from you. And, just in me researching you, one of the things that made me so I can't wait to do this interview, because everything that I read and all of the interviews that I saw, you're just so down to earth. Like, you really are what I envision the person being behind the Shade Room. Like, if I had to envision it, it would be your personality.
Yeah, because I'm a Black woman. The Shade Room is primarily Black women, and like I said earlier, like, it's you. Nobody can talk to us like we can talk to us, and so it's just, I'm a reflection of the community, honestly.
Nah, you really are. Okay, so I want to start off, and what I try to do with this show, typically our audience are people who want to become entrepreneurs, people who just want more out of life. So I try to bring really successful individuals to the table, or just all around inspiring people to the table, but didn't start off under the best circumstances. You're no exception to that rule. You weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth. You're Nigerian, correct?
I am. I'm first generation Nigerian American. So both of my parents are immigrants from Nigeria. Yeah.
Now, were you born here in the States?
I was born here, but one of my sisters was born in Nigeria. But yeah, I was born here in the 90s.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how true it is. And, even before we go into it, again, it's just to really establish that you come from humble beginnings.
Mm-hmm.
Is it accurate that your dad killed your mom when you were very young?
Yes. So talking about that Nigerian immigrant thing, my parents came over here for a better life. And my mother ended up seeing success in America in the sense that she was a nurse, and she was just rising in the ranks as a nurse. And my father had a harder time integrating into society and getting a job and things of that nature. And the Nigerian culture, a lot of times, is such a pressure on the man to be like the provider and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. And so that was the dynamic between, my mother was a breadwinner, and they also had 5 daughters. Mm-hmm. And so the financial burden that was on my mother was heavy. And so that caused issues. And yeah, my mother was a victim of domestic violence, and my father did become extremely abusive until the day that he did kill our mom. Yes. And we were in the house that day. And it's crazy because he's actually on parole. He's up for parole this September. Yeah, but that's definitely my story for sure.
Wow. Okay, I want to dive into that a little bit deeper before we move forward. You said you and your sisters were in the home when this happened?
Yes. So we were often in the home whenever there was like some domestic violence happening between our parents. And oftentimes we were the ones that would step in and, break up the fight. And they'll be like, okay, the kids are here. You know what I mean? And so it was very effective. And that day, we happened to all be, except for one sister who did witness a little bit of it, but the majority of us were asleep. Mm-hmm. And nothing was waking us up. My sister tried to wake us up. I mean, we were just deep asleep, and it was
God
crazy.
Protected y'all.
Oh yeah, I definitely see it as God, because the reason why it was so miraculous is because everyone else in the apartment complex heard things, but we were in the actual apartment and could not wake up.
Are you serious?
And Yes, no, I'm very serious. It was something that I had to accept, because it's easy to feel guilty that you didn't wake up.
Yep.
But then I realized that it was God's protection, because my father at that night was not in his right state of mind. And no, we don't know what could have happened if we had woke up and tried to get in the middle of it. And so I definitely see that as God's protection now that I look back on it. But yeah.
At the time, were you and your sister daddy's girls, or was it friction even between you guys and your dad?
We were daddy's girls because our mom was the breadwinner. So she would actually be working in the morning, at night. She just had the burden of, bringing in all the money. And so the person who was home with us, who was typically unemployed most of the time, was our father. So we loved our mother, and I love my mother more, I would say, but it was that our father was the one taking us to school, picking us up. He was the one that
So you knew this man. It was not like your dad was not around.
No. He was in the house. He was around. He just
Wow.
was not a contributor financially. And his shame of that, you know what I mean? And then also his resentment for having all girls, knowing that, he wanted in Nigerian culture, it's even more important to have a man, you know what I mean? Like a son, that's really big. And so just all those things ate at the marriage and caused resentment and abuse, and it just was an unhealthy relationship for sure.
Wow. Before I move on, have you or any of your sisters maintained a relationship with him while he's been incarcerated?
So it's crazy that you said that, because I recently reached out to him. I was writing a film.
After how many years, may I ask?
Oh, it was recent. It was 2018.
No, I'm saying after how many years of not reaching out to him?
Oh, ever since I was 6, and I'm 30 now. Yeah, wow. So it was just when I was 28 that I decided to reach out to him. And my father, it's just not a healthy relationship, and so I think that he's not all the way in his right state of mind. I think ever since that day, he might have had some mental health issues. I'm not really sure, but I think for me, it's just not a healthy relationship. So I've kind of accepted that. That that's what it is, and realized that I had to kind of maintain and protect my peace in that situation.
So even to this day, wow. Okay, you're first generation here in the States. I'm assuming you do not have much family here. What happens to you and your sisters?
So we ended up going into foster care. We didn't have much family here, that's the case. But when we were taken into the courts to kind of determine who we would be with, our family in Nigeria did want to take us, but we didn't want to go to Nigeria at the time. We was like, we trying to stay in the States. We want to stay right here. And so it was that reason why we went into foster care, because we didn't want to go to Nigeria. And so,
you're 6 years old at the time. You and I gotta believe your sisters were at best a few years older than you. Huh?
They were between the ages of 1 and 12. So
so you guys get to have a say so in where you go?
Yeah, they ask you, where you want to go, and you have to understand. My dad, the relationship with sometimes spouses and father-in-laws and mother-in-laws. You know what I mean? So he had already demonized my mom's. Family. And so we were like, we're not trying to go over there with the people that, our dad said were the evil people. You know what I mean? So we were like, we want to go here. We want to go, we want to be here. And they did give us that voice. And so they put us into care, which was a journey in itself. I mean, at first we all went into care together. It was 5 of us. So it's hard to find people who want to take in 5 girls, especially at the age of 12, 6, 8, you know what I mean? 9. And so, we initially were in a house together, and then over time began to split up. And me and my younger sister, the sister right above me, we stayed together, but we definitely split up from our other 2 sisters, going through the foster care system.
Going through a traumatic experience like that, have all of you guys remained close, or has there become friction between the sisters?
We're close, actually. We talk all the time.
All 5?
Yeah.
Wow.
All 5 of us. We're all we had. That's why. You know what I mean? And so we definitely are close. Mm.
I gotta believe that you made mention it was an experience within itself in the foster care system, but I gotta believe how you turned out. You did find some stability somewhere in there.
Yeah. Well, for me, it could have gone a different way. So, when I was growing up, at first I was very violent. I was like the kid that would just fight everybody. Saturday school, getting suspended. That was my trajectory. Because I had a lot of anger inside of me because I was young, dealing with all these feelings and this displacement. But I was put into a program called Peace for Kids, which is a program for foster youth to kind of help them, give them resources and give them a community. And so I went there and they were like, here's a pen and paper. We're gonna put you on the poetry team. And they were just like, that's what you're gonna do. And it was such a divine redirection because once I started writing, I remember the first time I did a poem, they took me to this coffee shop in Leimert Park, actually, in LA. And they were where you'll see like Insecure is filmed there and all that type of stuff. People work. But they took me there and I was cursing up a storm like F social workers. That was just my whole point. F the system, F this, F that. And everybody stood up and clapped for me. And I was like, what? You know what I mean?
Are you serious?
No, it was whack for sure, but they stood up and clapped because they were like, this young girl, because mind you, I was 12 or 13 at this time. So they were like, this young girl is using her voice to and so I just started using that as a medium for me to express my anger. You know what I mean? And the pain. I wrote a lot of poems about my mom and my dad and the things that I experienced growing up. One is called Behind Bulletproof Glass, you know what I mean? And the other one is called Battlefield. And so I was able to really express myself, and that kind of led me on the journey that I am now.
Now, is this where, and we'll speak about, I know you do writing in Hollywood and have written scripts and Sundance and all those good things. Is this where your love of writing started?
It did. I had no idea that I loved writing until I got on this poetry team. And I guess I asked myself, was I supposed to be on the poetry team? Was that what God had already designed? Or like, what if it was a tennis team? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, I was put on this team, and through that team, I was able to develop a love for writing. And that's where I got the idea to write. And I remember I went to college for accounting, but
what school?
Loyola Marymount University.
Okay.
So I went to college for accounting, and freshman year there was this kid that wrote a script, and he dropped out, and he sold his script for millions of dollars and dropped out. And I was like, oh. I'm gonna do the same thing. So I remember telling my friends, like, I had this she's still my best friend to this day, but I remember I told her, I said, I'm gonna write a script and I'm dropping out of this thing. I'm not about to finish this, 4 years of college, if you could write a script and drop out. And I remember she told me, she was like, that is not gonna happen to you. You can never do that. You know what I mean? And she was like, you're not gonna be able to write a script like that, and for temporarily that shut down my dream. So for the next 4 years, I wouldn't focus on writing at all, even though all of my professors were telling me, you're a writer, like this is what you need to do. I just focused on the realistic dream because of that conversation, right?
Can we stop there? I want to point something out to our audience, because you're saying such key things that I think affect so many other people's lives, and they really need to zone in on this. Number one, you spoke about being put into this poetry club. God, he has this thing divinely figured out. And sometimes we need to stop overthinking it. I often tell my audience, enjoy the process. Just embrace it, because you don't know why you are put into the situations that you're put into and how it's going to come to be a benefit in your future. So that's number one. And then you said something that I always harp on. And usually it comes from people who we love, and we know that they love us. You said your best friend. Here you are telling your best friend your big dream. This is what I want to do, and I can do it. If he did it, I know I can do it. And your best friend's comment, knowing she loves you, nah, that ain't gonna happen for you. You might as well finish up school. Actually set your whole trajectory back a few years when even the teachers, what was in your heart, you knew your purpose was writing, and you deferred that because of the comments. And I would say to anybody who is listening, when you find your purpose, sometimes, and Steve Harvey always says this, you can't tell big ideas to small people. Not calling your best friend a small person, but people, they don't see your vision. That is why God gave you the vision. He didn't give it to them. You just got to execute and make them believe. So I just wanted to kind of interject there because I think you're hitting on some key points that need for us to expound on.
No, yeah, for sure. But I ended up picking up my dream again. So after college, I went into accounting in the sense that I was working under.
Was that your major?
No. So this is what happened. I went into college with the accounting major. Accounting was disgusting to me. I absolutely hated it. I switched last minute to human resources because I could.
We're back. We had a little technical difficulties there, but we are back. Andrew, you with me?
I'm with you. So my power went out for some reason. I don't know what happened in the neighborhood, but you know, I'm back. I'm sorry, guys.
No worries. And I know you got a dope name. Do you prefer Angelica or Angie?
Angie is fine.
Angie's fine? Okay. Let's go. You were talking about majoring in accounting and you really didn't like it.
Yeah, I didn't like it. So I graduated with a 2.8 GPA, and I just remember after college feeling like, you know, I had the jobs in human resources, they took, you had to have all this experience, but I didn't understand because, you know, I was just graduated with my degree. So it was almost hard to break into human resources because you needed so much experience for these positions. Mm-hmm. So I went back to accounting and started working under a CPA so I could get my CPA. And so I was just at a dead end job. I think that going to work every day just felt pointless. I knew that wasn't my purpose, and I knew that I couldn't do accounting. I hated it. I don't know why I went back to it. And so at that point, I remember I just was like, you know what? I'm going to tell everybody that I want to be a writer, and that's just who I want to be. And I don't care if I'll be able to make money off of it or if I'm going to be able to be comfortable. For me, it was most important that I follow my dreams. And so literally a week after telling everyone, my mentors, people who really wanted to see me be an accountant or, you know, someone successful, I told everybody I wanted to pursue writing. A week later, my mentor put me in touch with an actress named Jordana Spiro who was writing a script. Okay. And so to me, when you talk about like things that I learned in life, that was one of the things that I learned, which was to basically declare what I wanted to do, because then people would connect me with people who are doing those things. Mm-hmm.
Now, how long are you working at this accounting firm?
I'm sorry. You said what?
How long were you working at the accounting firm?
I was there for, I want to say 2 years or a year or two. Yeah, it was around like a year and a half that I was there. Because I had just graduated in 2012. I went there, you know, for a year and a half. I worked there for a year and a half, and I was unemployed for 6 months after college. So yeah, about a year and a half. Started the Shade Room in 2014. But during that period of
Shade Room, I'm just curious because there's a lot of people who can benefit from this. They're sitting at a job that they despise. They know in their heart, I don't want to do this. This is at best a paycheck, and the pay ain't even that good. What was it that gave you the courage? What was it that thing that made you say, I'm going to speak out loud. I'm going to say, I'm going to be a writer. Even though I'm still here working, but I'm gonna stop playing with this thing. I know I'm going to work every day, but I hate it. It ain't for me. And I'm just gonna start putting out there to my friends, family, the universe, I'm gonna be a writer. What was that turning point?
The turning point was the fact that I was unhappy and I felt dead. I felt depressed, and to me, it was not worth my peace. You know what I mean? And so I realized that I would be happier if I made less, but was following my dreams. And also, a part of there was always something in me, because even I guess you could say it started with that boy that wrote that script, that knew that there was a possibility that I could sustain myself with writing, you know? And that possibility was worth me exploring, because in my mind, I was like, accounting is always going to be here. But, you know, if I step out and try it, because I had started a business before while I was working here at this place, right? I started a business named after my little sister called Juju's Closet. And it was fashion. And mind you, this was a project that I started just because I wanted to make money. I had no passion for fashion. You know what I mean? Like, I could dress nice on my own, but I don't care about trends and all that type of stuff. So for me, I tried that and failed. That business crashed and burned in 6 months. You know what I mean? And so I had been trying things, you know what I mean, to get out of my situation. And I think that's very important, to try things, because you never know. When I look back on it, I definitely understand why I had to study accounting, because I'm good with money now. You know what I mean? I'm really good with money. And so to me, that came from my accounting background, understanding money from a different point of view, the conceptualizing money, you know what I mean, is what helped me to be able to be in the position that we're in now, not having to take investment money and self-funding and bootstrapping, right? And so I also see why I had to start the first business and fail, because it taught me some interesting lessons of, you know, that first business, not doing something that you're not passionate about at all. You know what I mean? To me, I feel like, how can you go into an industry and compete with people who are passionate about something if you're not passionate about that? In my mind, those people are going to stay up later than you. They're going to grind harder than you. They're going to be more talented than you. This is what they love to do. And so to me, I feel like, you know, that taught me a great lesson, that I knew whatever business I was going to do, I had to be passionate about what I do, you know what I mean, in order to stay in it.
Great lessons that you're pointing out. Great lessons. So, do you leave your job willingly, or are you fired?
So it was like a mixture of both. So I'm at my job and I write this script while I'm at my job. We submit the script to Sundance. Just like, hey, let's submit it, let's see if it goes through. It gets picked up by Sundance, the Screenwriters Lab. And this is when they send you to Park City and you get all of these great mentors. So to give you an example, like some of my mentors in this program was like Quentin Tarantino, and people like that, Michael Goldenberg, Casey Lemons, like big time directors and people in the Hollywood industry that personally look at your script, read your script, and talk to you personally to help you revise your script. So this experience not only opened my eyes, right, to a whole new world, but it was a life-changing experience, because getting into the Sundance Lab is harder than getting into Harvard, statistics-wise, right? And so it was very an eye-opening experience, but also a huge confirmation that I was on the right track, right? Because, you know, the first script went to Sundance. So I had to leave for the Park City Sundance boot camp during tax season, you know what I mean, which was the time when my boss needed me the most. But I got out of there because I was like, this is my dream, of course. I would never sacrifice my dream for this job that wasn't going anywhere. And so I went, and I remember halfway through my program there, he called me and he said, if you don't come back now, then I'm going to fire you because you left without, I asked him, he wouldn't give me an answer. And so when it was time to go, I just got up and went. And so, you know, he was mad about a lot of things, but he told me that I had to get on a plane and come back right then and there that day, or I had to quit, or I would be fired. That's what he said, or I would be fired. So at that moment, I said, You know what I mean? I was like, well, I quit then. Because there's no way that I'm leaving this opportunity. And it was after I hung up the phone that it hit me that not only did I quit my job and don't have a source of income, but I was in the red already in my account at that time. So it was really bad for me. And, you know, it was, like I said, there's so many divine redirections in my life and divine confirmations that are just littered all throughout my story. Because right then I was supposed to get on stage, right? It was a screenwriters lab.
Hold on, this conversation happened right before you were supposed to go on stage?
That is exactly when it happened. I was supposed to go on. I promise you that. Like, I promise you. They, my boss called me 5 minutes before I was supposed to go on stage. So I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, you know, I just quit my job. Like, everything is going through my head and I have to get on stage. But what happened was I got on stage to recite a poem about my parents. So I was already emotional, but it wasn't about that at the time. I don't think I would have gotten emotional during the poem if it wasn't for me getting that call. So I get on stage, everybody's there. Quentin Tarantino, Michelle Satter, everybody's in the audience. And I'm crying as I'm saying this poem because life, it just to me was a reminder that I had gone through a hard life, you know what I mean? When I grew up, and then this was again another hard situation. And I was just, you know, in tears. And as soon as I walked off the stage, I walked to the back and people were literally giving me a standing ovation. Oh. And it was then that Michelle Satters came up to me and said, you know what? I'm going to give you a grant to write. I'm going to give you a grant of $5,000 so that you can just focus on writing. And I was like, what?
Hold on. You got a grant. Did it have anything to do with your script? Or was it because of the emotion you showed?
I think it was because of I don't know what happened now that I think about it, because I don't know if she saw me crying. I don't know what happened. I don't know why she felt compelled to. I think it was after the poem. I think she was moved by the poem and the emotion behind the poem that she wanted to support me as a writer. You know what I mean? And so she was like, yeah. So she gave me the grant, and I knew. I won't say that after that I was like, woo, I'm on my path, because I took the grant. And that night I was in the tub crying, like, what did I do? I just quit my job. So even though it's like you get a confirmation, and in that moment, the confirmation don't seem so big, but in hindsight, I could look back and say, that was your confirmation, that everything was going to be okay.
There you go.
But at the time, it didn't feel like it.
Learn to trust God and to trust the process. There would be so many more successful entrepreneurs, so many more successful people out there.
Yeah.
That was your test. But within minutes of you passing that test, of choosing passion, choosing your purpose over a paycheck, you got affirmation, you got validation, you got what most people are looking for. Am I on the right path? And you got it within minutes. If people just trust the process, they will be all right. But great story so far. Go ahead.
So where you want me to go now?
Okay. You're home. You get the $5,000 grant, right?
Yeah, so I get the $5,000 grant. And you know that money goes away very fast.
Very quickly. You don't have a job anymore.
Yeah, I don't have a job. So
you quit, so I'm assuming you're not even getting unemployment.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not even getting unemployment. So the money was gone within like 3 months. It was gone, right? And so at that time, I had to figure out what was my next move. The Shade Room came about because I, had spent a lot of my time consuming media, and like I just would talk to my friends and, kind of give them the rundown of what was going on. I was like their news source, right? And so they were like, well, girl, because mind you, they're all in grad school. So they're climbing up the ranks, and here I am. I'm unemployed. I'm at home, and not for nothing, a script takes years to create, and to ever rely on a script financially is the most foolish thing ever, right? Because it takes years. You never know if it's gonna get financed or not. You don't know. I mean, there's so many ups and downs when it comes to the script. It ended up coming out in 2018, but you know, it came out in 2018, and I started the Shade Room in 2014. So that's 4 years later. So I needed a backup plan, and the Shade Room was my backup plan because it's so funny that you say this. You know, and now that I think about it, I never connected this. The same friend that told me not to do the script later was the same friend that told me to do the Shade Room. She said, I promise you, I just realized that I started it because my friend told me. She said, "You're always giving us the tea. Like, why don't you just start your own platform? Like, start your own blog." You know what I mean? And so she actually, it was the same best friend.
Wow.
It was. And so I ended up starting it, and you know, I was a writer, right? So I was writing these captions, I was writing these articles, and within a week, we had over 10,000 followers. Now,
okay, slow down, because this is the important part. This is the part that most of my audience is going to want to know. I need you to paint the picture for me. Number one, I know you started on Instagram. I want to know why. Were you starting by yourself? Was your best friend with you? Did you have employees? What does it look like? Okay, I'm going to start this new business. I'm competing in a world that's oversaturated with gossip and celebrity content. Paint a picture for me.
The picture started with, I started to research. When she told me you should start a blog, I started to research the industry. And every article was saying, this was when www was dying. Like, people don't, like, if you think about news, how do you consume news the most? Most people consume news through social media in some way, whether it was shared on Facebook or, you know, that's how they do it. But back then, it was the intersection of when people were not going on www anymore and then crossing over to social media. And so at that time, all the articles were saying, this is a dying industry, don't do it. So I really didn't have any reason to do it except for the fact that I just figured that mine would be successful. I had an instinct that this could be successful. Let me try it.
How old were you at the time?
Huh?
How old were you at the time?
I was 23.
So you're right in the sweet spot of being on your phone and consuming content every minute, scrolling up. So, whereas so many of the industry heads of old, they're focused on a dying industry, which was the .coms. People were not taking that extra step. People had their mobile phones in their pocket around this time. And
now, let me not try to make it seem like I was a genius and I knew something everybody else didn't. I wanted to go www. I just didn't know how to create a website. I was literally, you know, technologically handicapped in that way that, one, I didn't have enough money to get somebody to create a website. I was about to say that,
and you were broke.
I was broke. So I was like, I can't pay nobody to do this website. Two, I didn't know how to do it. So I was like, well, dang, you know, what can I do to start right now, right? Another big moment. The fact that I started anyway, without the resources or without what I felt were the resources, was actually the best thing I did for my business. Because me starting on Instagram, because I said, well, since I can have a website, I'm going to build the audience, and then when I get the money to build the website, I'm gonna bring them to the website, right? And that's exactly what I did. So I started the audience on Instagram with what I could have. Those were my resources at the time. Instagram was free. I had a phone and I had some internet, right? So I was like, let me get on Instagram and start the website here, which was literally the single action that disrupted the industry at that time. Because while they were trying to figure out how to save the www, we were creating a new lane where we were giving our audience news in between their feed. So they were going on Instagram however many times a day, and we were meeting them there, and they would literally scroll through their friends' pictures and then get updates on news stories and what was going on. And for them, it was a different way of consuming media. It was 24/7. It was in traditional. And
how many of y'all were there at this point?
It was just me.
It was literally just you.
Yes, I opened it and then I just started blogging all day, right, you know, on Instagram, and I was like, I noticed that it was growing because people would be like, "Ooh, who is this?" They would tag their friends. They were like, "Who that?" You know. But the crazy, let me not forget this part. Now, back then, when you would start an Instagram, it would notify all of your friends list. I didn't know that. So all of my friends list got a notification that me, Angelica, started a page called The Shade Room. Now, mind you, I had 0 followers starting out, right?
So you really had 0 followers?
Yeah, I started with 0. You know, like everybody starts with 0, you know, when you open a page. So from having 5 followers to 10 followers to 20 followers, all of my friends who were in graduate school, you know, doing well, you know, in real jobs were like, what? Why is she on Instagram with this incognito type of site, you know, reporting on, like, they thought I was the biggest loser that you could imagine, right? So it was a moment.
Where did the name come from before you go further?
Huh?
Where did the name come from?
You know what? That's the only question I can't answer because I do not remember. I'm being honest with you. I know that I don't remember pondering. I think the name just kind of popped into my head, to be real with you. I think it popped into my head and I was like, oh yeah, that's a good name. I do not remember brainstorming for too long. I don't remember how I came, why, you know, it was just an idea. The name just kind of popped in my head.
I jump in real quick. I just want to bring to some gems to the forefront for our audience. Number one, you didn't have the money and you didn't have the experience to build your website. So you decided to move forward with what was available to you. If you are looking to build a business, stop giving yourself the way out. Stop giving yourself excuses. Use what you have available to you right now. And one last thing that I love to share, because we talked about it earlier. You started the business based on fashion. You were not into fashion like that. So you were not putting in those hours. I just heard you say you were up all night with this. So obviously off the bat, this was something that you loved. You felt passionate about.
Yes.
From day one.
It was something that I did in my leisure. I was writing, you know what I mean? I was doing what I love to do. So it was easy to do when it was hard. It's like a marriage. If you have a marriage with no love, then you know what I mean? It's gonna be so hard to do the work because you're like, I don't even love this person. You know what I mean? But when you love that person, it's like you're like, this is hard work. I'm gonna try and figure it out. You know what I mean? Just because I love this person. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of what it is.
Great analogy.
Yeah, well, with business, when business is hard, it's stressful, it's all these types of things. It's unpredictable. And with all of that, you have to love what it is that you're doing, love either the purpose of why you're doing it, love the thing that you're doing, in order for you to stick with it and still be a strong player in that industry. And so to me, that's definitely vital. And so I hate to hear so many people say, oh, I want to make money, that's why I want to be an entrepreneur. Or I want to be an entrepreneur because I just want to have a flexible schedule, because yes, your schedule is flexible, but it also is consuming. You know what I mean? Because you can't turn off. You're an entrepreneur all day, all night. You know what I mean? And also, it's about way more than money. Because sometimes, a lot of times, it's hard to get the money.
It has to be. Because people don't understand, when you are your own boss, when you are building a business from the ground up, I know it sounds like you have flexibility, but you are working double and triple the hours that regular people who go and punch that clock work. So you better love what you do. How long did it take for this thing to catch on?
Now, this one was a little bit, it took me, I would say from the first week and a half, which is interesting, but I did put in a lot of hours during that time. But like I literally
during the week and a half, you put in a lot of hours. Wonderful.
Yeah, I didn't sleep during that whole week. But the people started to come, and like I said, I attribute a lot of that to the fact that it was just something new. It was, anytime you disrupt the industry, people are shocked, interested, and want to see what's going on. You know what I mean? And so to me, I feel like they were like, "What? There's this."
What are we basing that off? Meaning, I asked you, how long did it take to catch on? You said about a week and a half. Are we basing this on now you have 10,000 followers, or
from there it started to go viral. There was a virality to it after that. So I would say once the week and a half hit 10,000 followers, from there, it was just like consistent growth. Wow. Even until this day, we're getting 60 to like 150,000, 60,000, very rare, mostly 80 to 150,000 new followers per week to just one platform, and that's Instagram, not including all of our other platforms or our website. And so there's been a virality about the Shade Room that's kind of been consistent this is our 6th year. And so consistently, if you look at when we made Forbes 30 Under 30, we had 3.9 million. And now we're at 19.4 million. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's always grown at that rate or more. And, you know, it's a large part due to the fact that when I started the business, my main thing was listening to my audience. And I learned early on in business, from the failed business, that listening to your audience is one of the most important things you can do. And so I used to talk to them. I know that Airbnb is having its issues now, but I remember listening to a podcast where the founders were saying that in the beginning of their business, they used to go knock on the doors of their customers, right? And ask them, they used to say, what can we do better for you, right? And they would have those personal conversations. I think for any business, if you don't talk to your audience and know exactly what they want, you're at a disadvantage and you're stunning the growth of your company. Like, you have to know what the people want from you.
Such great advice, such great advice, such great insight, because your business, it's really founded on your community, which you call the roommates. Mm-hmm. Most of your content is coming in directly from your roommates. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's like a forest bias type of situation where the roommates are controlling the content. And so that was something I had to learn. Even naming them the roommates was something I had to learn. Because you further mobilize a community when you give them a name that they can unify under. Like, when you think of Black Lives Matter movement, we have this name now that we can all push forward, and, you know, this movement that we can push forward. And so once you name your audience or give them an identity to where they can relate to each other, like, I'm a roommate, you're a roommate, like, we're roommates, okay, good. And once you give them that ownership, right? Mm-hmm. The community begins to grow. And so that's what we saw with the Shade Room. We were giving them, I told them early on, because I used to be the writer on the blog, and then when it was a blog, we definitely transformed into a media company. But when it was just a blog, I was the writer, and the audience at one point told me to get off the blog. They didn't want to hear my opinions. They didn't agree with me all the way. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. They didn't like my voice there. And I had an option at that point. I could have continued on not listening to my audience, and I would have died out, or step back and get off the platform. And that's what I did. And my audience appreciated that. And since then, they've appreciated that they have rights to the platform. If they don't want certain articles up, I'll take it down. If they don't think something is their voice, I will take it down. We only report what they want to see. You know what I mean? And that's what it is. And so I think that that all comes from listening and talking and being engaged with the audience.
Now, you have millions and millions. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know that you are the #1 Black media company in the world on social. Is it? Because I can't think of another.
WorldStar is, so last year. Just to put it into perspective, Instagram last year in 2019 was the platform with the most engagement in the world. Mm-hmm. So even though Facebook had more users, Instagram users engaged with each other more, with the platform, more than any other platform in the world, right? And the #1 engaged account was WorldStar Hip Hop, which is, I don't know if it's a fully Black audience, and I don't know if it's Black owned anymore, but I know that it's of the hip hop, kind of, news. And then the Shade Room was #3. And 9gag, which is a white media company, was #2. And so I think that we were the 3rd most engaged account, and I want to see what we are this year. I'm thinking, it might have gone up, but like, that's what
do they have more followers than you?
WorldStar?
Yeah.
They do, actually. They do have more followers, for sure.
I thought you guys were #1. So I correct myself. I stand corrected.
Well, we're the #1 Black owned, I would say. We're the #1 Black owned. WorldStar, I don't know if they're Black owned.
Speaking about listening to your audience. I love that you said that. You step out, but your writers, they're celebrities themselves. They are really front and center. Like your writers are just as much as celebrities in some right as the stars that they report on. Did that come by accident, or is that just something that, you know, once you stepped out, you were like, you guys step in?
Yeah, that's what happened. They wanted me to step out. So when I stepped out, I brought up new voices, right? And so those were the voices they felt more comfortable with. They liked hearing from other Black women. I brought in my writers are all Black women. And so I brought, you know, because I mean, I feel like that's what it should be. I mean, our audience is Black women mainly. But they're Black women from the South, Black women from the East Coast, Black women from the West Coast, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? From the UK and all other places. And so I was able to bring in these different voices, and the Black women and the audience can now connect with these different types of voices that they feel. Because Black women are not a monolith, neither are Black people, right? And so they all have different kinds of interests, and I brought them in. And yes, they've become, I wouldn't say they're influencers, because the people follow them now, you know what I mean? So, you know, I've noticed that the writers will come, and I did expose their name for a purpose, because they need to be credited for their work, but also because it gives them a responsibility. Mm-hmm. The roommates go to their DMs personally, and they'll be like, "This is how I feel about the article that you wrote today." You know what I mean? Like they really are. They really. You see, the thing is, our roommates come to the shade room 30 times a day, and if I could ask you, yeah, our average they come 30 times a day, because we post 50 to 70 times a day. So they know we've shown them that if they keep coming back, they're going to get new content. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so it's in their habit to look at a post and say, okay, let me come back to look at the comments later, or let me come back later, and I know there'll be 2 or 3 more posts. So that's another thing when it comes to business, is that consistency, letting your audience know that they can reach you anytime, all the time, that you're present all the time, allows them to integrate you into their daily habits. And yeah, on average, they come to our page 30 times a day. That means some people come more than 30 times a day to the shade room. And so for me, like, I forgot what I was saying, but I hope I answered the question.
People are really looking at y'all like you are their CNN. You are their trusted news outlet. And you spoke about having a responsibility to your audience.
Yes.
Talk to me about the vetting process, because I gotta imagine you guys have millions and millions of people hitting you with, you know, very exclusive content. Is there some content that you won't share? What does that vetting process look like before anything goes live?
Well, yeah, you know, and the crazy thing is I've had to learn that along the way. I was not in media, nor did I go to school for journalism or media. So I was thrust into an industry that I knew nothing about, had no prior, you know, experience with. And so it was like building a plane while flying, in the sense that I had to make some mistakes. There were times when we got sued. We got sued by Michael Blackson, you know what I mean, one time, because one of, you know, my writers at the time had posted a sex tape. This was around the time when, not a sex tape, it was like a sex, you know, something that exposed one of his private parts or whatever. And so, you know, learning about
how many? One of his private parts? How many does he have?
I mean, well, you know, I mean, it's supposed, he was having an affair of some sort, but basically it was on accident though. It was not meant to be shown, and so the video was meant to be cut off. The wrong video was posted. It's just a long thing that happened, but I had to answer to that. It was during the time that Gawker had gotten shut down. So I think for me, over time, I've learned the responsibility of the platform, because when it started off small, it wasn't until we had this huge Black audience that I realized, oh my God, you know, the responsibility is not just to be a good media company, but to be one that Black people feel represents them well. You know what I mean? And so that's a constant conversation of whether the shade room is good for the community. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I definitely can argue that it's great for the community, because I think it's any Black media is great for the community. One, because we need to have spaces where we can tell our stories through our own lenses and perspectives. But the things that have happened, because like we've helped to build businesses and we've helped to, LMI, I'm sorry. She has credited us to help it with her career because we posted, she was kind of discovered on the Shade Room, right? And now she's a Grammy Award winning, amazing artist. And so I think a lot of good has come from the Shade Room. But I've had to learn what this platform is, what my purpose was, why I'm here, all while building it. You know what I mean? And so my perspective on business is, and what you do in life is not about how to become successful or how to be a billionaire. I know a lot of people want to be billionaires now. You know what I mean? And that's this talk about it, or how to be a millionaire. To me, it's more so, what is the purpose that you were called for? Because I feel like favor isn't fair. And if you're in your purpose, it's really easy. It's not easy in the sense that you won't work. You're going to work, but you're going to have a natural and innate anointing on whatever it is that you do, that people are going to wonder, how are you doing it? You know what I mean? And
Yep.
How are you sustaining it? How are you so talented in this? And it really comes from the fact that was who you were born to be. And so I think when it comes to entrepreneurship, if you feel innately that you are an entrepreneur, I knew that I was supposed to be an entrepreneur / writer, because these were the things that were showing up in my past. When I was in college, I was hustling, doing hair in the dorms. You know what I mean? Doing everybody hair for $75. You know what I mean? And I had a business then. I was always trying to start. When I was younger, I was selling candy and kind of had my own business then. So I've always been hustling in an entrepreneurial kind of way. So that's how I knew that I had these types of traits. You know what I mean? So I would say go into whatever is your purpose, really. Mm-hmm.
You've said so much great stuff. You really have. How many employees do you have now? And do you try to keep your operation lean?
Yeah. Okay. So let me tell you about that. So I have about 20 employees right now, right? And yes, it is my goal to keep the operation lean. I have no choice, because I decided early on, I took $100,000 investment for the Shade Room, right? And that was the only investment money that I did take. Mm-hmm. And I took it with a company called NDVC. This was before I had an LLC. This was in 2015. It was before I had an LLC.
So 1 year in business, somebody saw the potential of the company and was willing to give you $100,000?
Well, after a year in business, that's when we started getting those accolades, like 30 under 30 was in 2015. I want to say it was in 2015. And then New York Times wrote about us. They called us the Instagram of TMZ. Mm-hmm. It was a Black woman who wrote about us at the New York Times, Jenna Wortham. I'm always say her name. Shout out to her. But the investor read that article. And I have to tell the story because it's a crazy story.
Please.
He read the article. How much time do we have?
Got as much time as you have.
Okay. So the investor read the article from the New York Times, and he reached out to me. He was having a program where he was giving out money to certain businesses for investment. He gave me 2 days. He told me, he said, you have 2 days to figure out whether you want to take this investment money of $100,000. You have to understand, at that time, I was making $5,000 a month around there. And I was in a Hawthorne still. So for me, I was like, oh, I need this money. But more than the money, what I needed was his expertise, because he was a big time investor in Silicon Valley. He had invested in Indeed, Foursquare. He was an early investor in a lot of those companies and was extremely successful. And so what I wanted most was his business knowledge. And it felt good to have a comfort of sitting on $100,000 at that time, which to me was a lot of money at that time. So I traded the $100,000 for 7% of the business, right? So I owned 93% at that time. And throughout that process, I was able to be in the room with big CEOs and leaders in the industry. I got to have one-on-one conversations with like the founder of Indeed, literally like him and four of us, 4 or 5 of us in the room, and we get to ask him whatever questions we want to ask. And I feel like the trajectory of the Shade Room is a direct reflection of that education, because Indeed, if you notice about companies like Indeed and Craigslist, they don't really, you don't see them with the bells and whistles. Right. Like, you don't see them every year changing their site and making it just, and adding all these features. They tend to just be very focused on providing their audience with a platform that gives them exactly what they need. And if it works, they'll keep it working the same way for 10 years. Have you noticed? Like, Craigslist hasn't really changed, right? So you'll see that the Shade Room kind of is a reflection of that, in the sense that our main focus is, how do we continue to serve our audience, and how do we continue to give them what they need? Right now, they're saying they need it on Instagram primarily. So we're giving it to them, and we've just been focused on building the audience. And what that has done is, that's why they come to us 30 times a day, because they feel that we are serving them so well that they feel like, okay, yeah, I'll continue to interact with this brand 30 times a day, because one thing, I know they're going to be open. I know they're going to be open late. You know what I mean? I know they're going to have 70 posts every day. You know what I mean? And so the same thing with Craigslist. If you're looking for an old bike, or, a job, or whatever it is, that Craigslist got it. It's going to be the same format you're used to, and stuff like that. And so that is, one of the things that I took from that. But once the company was able to make its own money and focus on profit, and, so many companies don't focus on profit. I think profit is one of the biggest things you need to focus on when you're thinking about, is your business healthy? Yep. Can you turn a profit? You know what I'm saying? And we could talk about that later, with all of the big unicorns and all these businesses kind of falling, and, like Uber, all these things, because the focus was never on profit. It was on getting more investment money and becoming a unicorn, and or whatever. But I think that his program taught us to focus on, how can I take this money that I have, reinvest it in the company, basically bootstrap it. How do I reinvest it in the company, make more money, and then hire more people? You know what I mean? Kind of like that, right? And so that's how we built the company, very lean. We didn't have an office until recently, and now we're thinking about throwing away the office again, because we really didn't need it. Being in the space with different media companies who have 3,000 employees, and we have 20, but we could be louder. Our content has more reach. You know what I mean? And so for us, it's just indicative of the fact that when you are a resourceful person, which I learned to be from my past, and when you use your resources, you can have a bigger reach than someone who has all of the money in the world. Because sometimes when you get all that investment money and you have all that money at your disposal, you're not as resourceful. You can do anything. You can afford anything. So us not being able to afford anything taught us to be very strategic and intentional about every move we made. And that helped us a lot.
So, question for you. I got to believe, since getting that initial $100,000 investment, you've had millions thrown at you. Why not take, these checks from the different places, from these different investors at this point? And I get that you want to keep it lean, but we live in a society, and you spoke about Silicon Valley earlier. People tend to put value on their companies based on how much money they have been able to raise with the company. So where's your discipline with that? Because, I got to believe that
the truth is kind of the truth. See, can I tell the truth though? Because the truth is kind of, I don't want to sound like that. I'm going to tell you like this. After I took the investment money from the first man, who it was $100,000 investment, he was an advocate for not taking investment money. So it's almost like,
hold on, the guy who you took the investment money from was an advocate for not taking additional investment.
Yes, his name is Bryce Roberts, and his company is NDVC. He does a program. If you're a Black entrepreneur looking for funding, he's actually a good resource, because he has dedicated himself to providing funding for people of color. And I would recommend him any day, because he's an amazing ally. He's a white man, but he's an amazing ally to Black people. But he Like I said, everything was divinely orchestrated because he gives me 2 days to sign up for his program. I did not, and I would never tell anybody else to do this because it's the worst thing that you can do. I did not even read the contract, nor did I hire a lawyer to look over the contract. I knew nothing about investment. All I saw was $100,000. And then I had a conversation with him and I trusted him instinctively. I knew that he was somebody I could trust. And he did not fool me. I signed on without reading the contract, as I said, but it was one of the best things I've done. But his program was all about showing us how to build the company up without taking millions of investment dollars. He had a theory that a lot of people ruin their companies by taking so much investment. Because if you look at a company like Vice, right? And we look at Vice and we say that's a unicorn company, $1 billion valuation. You would think that taking all of this investment money is the way to go. Mark Zuckerberg was the one who kind of set the tone for media companies taking all this investment money, right? And ballooning like they did. But the reality is that a lot of these digital media companies don't know what they're doing. A lot of people don't know what the future of digital media is. It's fairly new. So not everybody knows how to monetize on a level where they can, they're giving you 200 million. Do you know how to give them 200 million X? You know what I mean? Have you figured out a business model to pay off the investors and to grow your reach in a way where you're not losing your audience and losing the authenticity and the niche audience that you created? Because the only way to grow right now in media, for the most part, for media companies, is to increase your audience. But if you increase your audience, do you lose the original base? That's like us, you know what I mean? And so for me, it depends on what kind of business you have. But our business was very sensitive because we were dealing in a Black community. So the moment that I had the moment that I would have investors invest in this company, they would be more concerned about their money. Being made. And these investors have 20 companies on their portfolio. So they don't care if you're a company. Their strategy is to make all of you guys go as hard as you can, kill your companies, and then see which ones float to the top. They don't care. You know what I mean? And so to me, having all of the board of directors, having all of these investors with all of their different opinions in our company, which I knew our audience was very sensitive, could have meant death to our company. You know what I mean? If we tried to then acquire an audience outside of us, or if we tried to change our voice, or if we put the money before our audience. So me being able to own our voice and own our platform allowed me to be flexible. So when they said, hey, we don't want you to talk about celebrity news anymore, this is our audience, right, saying this. When they said, we don't want you to talk about celebrity news anymore, we could flip and become the Black CNN, which we've been doing lately. You know what I mean? Right. And have nobody tell me anything. We can go as hard for Black people. We can say whatever we want. You know what I mean? We can do whatever we want and be flexible, which is so important for any digital media company. And I think that a lot of times those millions and hundreds of millions of dollars stop these companies from being as flexible and stop them from focusing on the mission of their company, which is you see everything crumbling, right? And so to me, I feel like that was such great knowledge that he gave me.
And that's really great advice that you're sharing, because like I said earlier, so many people, they measure the success of a company based on how many millions of dollars that they were able to raise. And then you have a bunch of investors telling you what you should be doing with your company, and you lose the thing that really made you guys get off the ground to begin with. So it's an important point that you just brought up. What's next for the Shade Room?
So what's next for the Shade Room is to continue to dominate, but in other areas. Like, for instance, we noticed that we have a huge Nigerian population. We have a huge UK population. We're big in India. We're big in all of these places where, 400,000 people here, 500,000 people, readers here. And so we just want to continue to just reach over into those areas, into the Black diaspora, wherever we are, and be able to connect people through news and entertainment. And so to me, it looks like us continuing to do what we do, but in different areas, and just, connect everything and continue to provide news for our audience and give them the best news, more news, exclusive news, more access. And that's exactly what I want to do. I want to continue to be the service for them and continue to service them as well as I can.
Could you ever see selling this company?
So many people, you know, I've gotten so many offers to sell the company. It's not even funny. And if you know, I haven't even thought
And
about
before you answer this, are you still having fun with it?
Yeah. Now here's the thing. There are times when I can't stand the shade room. I'm gonna be honest with you. There's times when I'm like, pack it up. I'm you know, cause you know what I mean? Like, there's been times I wanted to pack this business up so many times. I can't even tell you, but there's more times when I want to basically stay, and I love it. I do love it because I still be on there late at night laughing, you know, listening, crying, whatever, you know, because the shade room, a lot of the content provokes a lot of, you know, different emotions. And so I'll be on there. I'll still post sometimes. I'll get on there and post sometimes. You know what I mean? To be one of the writers. I still love what I do. I don't think I could have done anything else at this point. And so I am still having fun with it, but I'm not gonna lie. There are times where it's very difficult and stressful, for sure.
Okay, so back to my original question. Could you, at this point in your life, could you see selling it? Is there a number?
I'm not selling it anytime soon.
Okay.
I'm not saying, and if I did sell it, it would have to be to somebody that I trusted in the Black community. It would definitely be a Black owner, and it would have to be somebody that I really trusted.
I love that. I love that.
Oh yeah, I'm not selling it to anybody that's outside of the Black community. I would never. Like,
so
that's
you feel that much of responsibility to the audience that you would not sell it to somebody who does not know this culture. And
that would be an absolute tragedy. If
I
I
love that.
It would be a tragedy. Like, why would I sell that to somebody outside of our culture for, I don't know what intentions they may have, or it's just not fair. I would never do it. To me, the money is not, I don't do this for the money. That's what I'm saying. Like, we make a lot of money and we've been able to self-fund and, you know, have a cushion, and, you know, every year we're making more money. But what I'm saying is that even if it was 100 million on the table, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't do this for the money. Mm-hmm. I do it because I feel like it's a purpose that I have, you know what I mean? And so I love the community and I love what I do. And I could not take something I love and just sell it to whomever. And I know how what they're going to do in my community. You know what I mean? And so I can't do it. So I would only sell it to someone in the community, and not just anybody in the community, but someone that I trusted, who I felt had a passion like me for this kind of community. Otherwise, if I couldn't find somebody like that, I would run it till it dies out. I'm telling you, like, that's just what I would do. I would never put this community in the hands of the wrong person. So that's just,
I knew this. I had a good feeling about this interview. I told you that offline. But what you said just cemented it for me. I love that you said that. I really do. I guess my last question I got two more questions for you. Mm-hmm. I asked you what's next for the Shade Room. What's mm-hmm. next for Angie?
What's next for me? Well, I'm currently working on a film right now that is being produced by Issa Rae, and it's called Juju. It's a young adult film for, you know, Black youth. It's based in New Orleans. You know what I mean? It's a high school movie. And I have a couple of other stuff that's going to TV. I'm still writing scripts and I'm still heavily in film. So there, you know, the sky is the limit for me. I don't know how many of you have gotten visions about where God has you or where he's going to take you. But for me, you know, my whole journey has been driven by visions. You know what I mean? Like, when the Shade Room first started, it was just a thought. It was a backup plan. But halfway through, I had a vision of where it was supposed to go. No details of how I was going to get there. You know what I mean? Because God never gives you the details or anything like that. But he's always shown me someone greater than who I am at the time. Someone who it would take a lot of work, as in God. You know what I mean? God, it will take actually God to become, you know what I mean? Like, he would actually have to be with me in this process, but it's driven by vision. So my vision of who God has called me to be is what I'm looking at and what I'm striving for. And it's so much different than who I am today. So that's what I see in the future.
Where can people find you? Obviously, the whole world knows where they can find the Shade Room. Where can people find you directly?
That's hard because I don't have an Instagram. I do have a Facebook. But
the queen of Instagram media does not have a personal Instagram?
No, it's too much Instagram. I already get too much Instagram from work. So to me, I'm like drained after that. I don't want any more Instagram. But I am on Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, Angelica Nwandu, and Facebook. I guess those are the only kind of places where you can find me.
You leave our audience, and again, our audience are entrepreneurs and success seekers. Can you leave them with one final bit of inspiration based on your journey?
That I haven't said, or can I reiterate something I've already said?
You can absolutely reiterate something you've said already.
I would say that the best piece of advice that I could give when it comes to not just business, but just life, is to tune into the reason why you're here, right? And to me, I feel like we all have a purpose. We all have a reason why we're here. And for me, if you tune into your purpose, the ride is going to be much easier because you've been born for this. You know what I mean? And so I just want to tell people that, you know, I won't say don't start businesses out of necessity, because that's what I did. But what I would say is be comfortable with the unknown. Understand that God is at work always, even when it doesn't feel like it. Try things, experiment with things until you find what it is you feel you were called to do. Look in your past. Ask the people around you what they feel like you should do, because, you know, some people will have some type of idea. Like I had people around me saying, you should be a writer. You know what I mean? So I would say, think about what people have called you, who have told you should do, that you're gifted in, and go into that, because when you are in your purpose, there's no competition. There's no, I mean, nobody can do you better than you. You know what I mean? Nobody could do, if you were made for this, nobody can do it better. You know what I mean? And so I think that that's the advice that I would give, is to continue to try. And a purpose is something that unfolds. It's not something that you know right away. It unfolds. And for the rest of our life, our purpose is unfolding. And the only thing we can do is to try to explore and try things out so that we can, you know, not manifest it, but step into it. You know what I mean? Eventually. So that's what I would say.
Those were great words. Angelica, you are such an inspiring role model, not just for Black and brown people, but for women, for Black women, white women, for women, to know that you have done it, and you're so positive and you're so willing to give back in terms of your experience and your knowledge, the good and the bad. Thank you for gracing us with this time, and you are a true power move maker. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
What's up, guys? Thanks for sticking with me to the end of the video. Truly appreciate you. If you like anything you heard here today, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you know anybody that can benefit from this message, feel free to share. Peace and love.